We are here to help you juice up your job app. And the thought is that clearly with so many people applying for jobs, we know there are fewer jobs than there have been in the past with COVID-19. This is a way to separate yourself. This is a way to understand who's looking at your candidacy and hopefully to help get to the next round. This is the same profile that Wonderbench shares with employers. And so we're going to take you through all these steps of how to introduce the profile in your job application and your cover letter, how to get an inside lane and find a person who can really help you do that, and then to follow up and to track progress. Let's just talk about the nature of hunting for a job. And these are data from 2017, so before all this went down, right? Before this all went down, starting with this chart here on the left, how long does it take to get a job? This shows in normal times how long people need to be applying for jobs, interviewing, and how long it takes. And certainly, it can easily take 3 months of time in the best sort of situation. But one thing I wanted to show everybody and to pay some attention to is look at the number of job applications that people are needing to submit to get that job. For human resources, 218. High school teachers, nearly 200. Salesperson, almost 200. You know, an administrative assistant, over 200. And so it does take, even in the best of times, a lot of job applications because we're all working through this math that's captured here on the right. On average, you have an 8% chance of getting an interview from one job application. So that just means you have to submit 10 to 20 applications to have the chance of one interview. And then to get that one interview, it usually takes 10 to 15 interviews to get a job offer. So the nature of this game, everybody, is that it takes some time and you kind of have to stay at it, and it certainly can be discouraging, but even in the best of times, it can be challenging. Let's take a look at the results of the poll, and we'll go ahead and share those. And so we have marketing, software, sales perspective here. And if we look at the greatest challenge in landing the role, it really runs the gamut. So not enough jobs available, certainly not getting invited, right? And that's actually one thing I think we're going to really be able to address by including the profile. Not getting past the initial interview, not getting past the final round, right? So across the board, and you know what, everybody, like, this is how all of us feel. I've been in this game as well, and I gotten stuck in these exact same spots. So I think what we're going to talk about today really addresses the first two. Other things I think can address the second two, and that might be another conversation for another time. But today, let's focus on what to do with getting a little bit more attention with fewer jobs out there and going for that interview. Okay, so let's talk about the Wonderbench profile. Why do we even have it? And it's captured here on the right. I'm going to show you a demo profile in a minute, but it features job fit motivations and abilities associated with top performance in the role and a recorded video interview, as all of you know because you've been a part of creating it. And so why do we do it? Most recruiters just forward a resume, right? So they don't provide this rich set of data. Our job fit assessment correlates motivations and ability with job fit and performance. That's this report here. We're going to go through those details. Also, our one-way video interview gives you the ability to introduce yourself to the candidate. In a sense, skipping around in the interview, as we just discussed, it's challenging to get to the interview. It's nice if there's a way to introduce yourself concisely in this quick video interview. Our profile convenient and elegantly provides not just these two pieces of information, but your resume, your LinkedIn profile, and a feedback mechanism where the recruiter or the employer can share some immediate feedback. And finally, there's a score that reflects results of phone screen discussions, the interactions that I've had, and essentially this equates to kind of like a first round interview score sheet. And we'll talk more about that as well, because I'm sure there are going to be questions. So in essence, this is the profile here. And now let's kind of break it down. So, well, I guess I've just talked through these elements here. So, but you can see these 7 different elements. And another thing that we'll talk about is it's a password protected website. So it is a web page, and we benefit from all the attributes of a website, that it's trackable. We can see when people are looking at it. It is password protected. And we're going to talk about how you can share this profile when you're applying for jobs. So there's really 3 different ways that I think about where you might do this in the process. And so the first is adding the link in your resume. The second is adding the link in your cover letter, likely in the latter section as you're closing, as you're laying out your call to action. And then finally, many job applications have places where you can include other websites, and you could note this website in that online job application. And so drilling down a bit here, within your resume, many of you today, your email address is there, your phone number is there, your LinkedIn profile is there, your Wonderbench profile link. And again, I'll share with you the hyperlink for each of yours after this meeting. It could just be listed there in your resume. Now, as we just discussed, there is a password required to unlock it. I wouldn't recommend having the password here because your resume is a pretty public document. And we may or may not want to have everybody looking at your Wonderbench profile. I'm open to that conversation, but I did want you to know there's some security around it. And one way to keep it secure is by being more careful about when you give out that password. Now, I do think in the cover letter, referencing the profile and including the password so that they can drill down and open it is a good place to do it. And let me show you what that's like. So imagine in your cover letter, you had this language. Additionally, my Wonderbench profile includes a quick video interview and an assessment showcasing motivations and abilities associated with top performance as whatever your job is. What would happen is when they're reading that cover letter, they would click, and that's going to bring them to your Wonderbench profile. And so it's going to look like this. So they're going to come to your Wonderbench profile, and your name is going to be here. And now I have to put in a password. And now, and it's me. So all the information is here as we just discussed. So they're going to see the profile, your information about where you're going to school, your job title, your resume. Most of you very smartly have a 1-page resume, but if it's multiple pages, they're going to be able to easily get through that. They could actually download the resume from here if they wanted to. And then here's where they can go through that assessment. Now, I wanted to share some of the details of the assessment because I know there are going to be some questions. So as we've said, this assessment showcases your job fit for the role. And I've sent all of you a copy of your assessment results, your raw results, not specific to a certain job, but your raw results. And in that, you received things like you saw where you stand across these different 11 dimensions that the assessment measures. And there's also a descriptive review that says something about who you are. And many of you had said, yeah, that really does describe me pretty well. But what I wanted to show you here is that the assessment that we include in the profile is specific to a job. So that's different from the one I sent you because, in fact, I'm able to pull your assessment for different jobs. And of course, there's different fit for different jobs. Anything in this medium to high range is a nice fit for the role. Now, I happen to have, in this case for recruiting, that's one of my strongest job fits. So I have good, strong job fit there. And the way it works is the company that we're working with, Burke Assessment, who's developed this assessment, they have assessed recruiters who are just, maybe not that very good at the job, average, and great. And they've noted what are the traits that differentiate the great recruiter from the average or the not so great recruiter. And they've honed in and prioritized across their 11 traits which ones matter the most. And they are listed here in priority order. And so every job, this listing is going to be in a different order because it's specific to that job. And so for the recruiter job, according to Burke, these 6 traits, and the top 6 are the ones that you really pay the most attention to. These ones really matter. And what they've done is they've identified a range in gray that you'd like to be in to be strong and have high fit for that job. You can see it's not always to the far right, but they want you to be in that range. Now, a number of these are cognitive, and then others are more personality. And actually, on the report I sent each of you, they were delineated: the cognitive ones, the ability ones, and the personality ones. But the ability ones are problem solving, vocabulary, rapid problem solving, and spatial visualization. And so it's the combination of these traits and your personality traits that they have said, this is what a good profile looks like, the gray zone. And you can see in my case, my scores are generally there, except for structure. I'm a little less structured than a lot of people in that job, and responsiveness. I'm not the calmest person in the world. I'm a little more expressive than the average recruiter. So I want all of you to know that this data set and these scores are not the end all be all. It's not like a perfect tool, but it's not bad, and it's helpful. And anyone that has medium to high for a certain role, according to Burke, is a really compelling candidate. And part of what we're doing by offering this is providing more data than you might otherwise have for a candidate who hasn't been working that long. For most students, right? They just haven't worked that long. And so this is a way to say, how's this person going to do compared to someone who's great in the job? And it drills down through all of them. It shows the ones that have high fit. And it even addresses some of the ones that are job mismatches. Like in my case, I showed you how some of them are a little bit different, and some of the questions that you might want to ask if you're the employer with the candidate. So what we do, and this is something that I do, is we look across 4 different measurements: your education experience relative to others on a 5-star scale for the job, the work experience that you've had, your assessment, so that's what we just looked at, and your interview. And there are scores given for all of those. And just so all of you know, usually in work environments, there's very often a 5-star type rating, a 1 to 5 rating. It's very common. And usually average workers or good workers in a job are about a 3. A 5 is almost unheard of, and it's often that the person is almost overqualified. And then a 4 is that they're really going to be doing great. And so I want you to know when you see your reports that I've scored kind of according to that rubric. That's quite common in the employment world. It's not that common to have a zillion 5s. And so it's not the case that you're going to all see a zillion 5s here as well, but you're going to see scores between 3 and 5, and varying on the different measures. And that's how that part works. So let's talk about best practices now beyond what we just talked about on the profile. I would also encourage you, I'm sure everybody has some questions. Why don't you take a look at the Q&A and feel free to start loading some of the questions, because I do want to talk through those as a group. So feel free to take a look at that. But here's some other things I want to encourage everybody to be doing. So first, you need to be building your LinkedIn profile and your LinkedIn network. It's a powerful tool, especially in the business world, but I think that would be technical jobs, scientific jobs. And it's powerful because when you apply to jobs at different companies, the larger your LinkedIn network is, the better chance you have of finding someone either who a first degree network, or who's a step away from someone who kind of second degree network, who might be able to help you. And in fact, what you specifically want is you want to find someone who might be willing to submit your application on your behalf. Why would anyone do this? Why would anyone be willing to do this? The reason is people get paid if their referral gets hired. People get paid usually thousands of dollars if someone who they referred gets hired. And so what I do when I'm looking for jobs, and what I encourage you to do as well, is before you apply online, you should first check LinkedIn and see if you know a person who is there, or if you know someone well who knows someone there. And typically what you would do is ask for an introduction and see if you might be able to chat with them. And you might say, hey, I saw there's a job at your company. I'm interested. I'd love to hear about your experience there. I'd love to chat with you about it. Might you be willing to have a 15-minute conversation? That's typically the ask. You're asking for a 15-minute conversation. And if they're willing to, then when you have that call, you ask, is there a process to submit applications through a referral process? And virtually every company there is. And I will say, if someone submits your resume and application that way, it has a much, much better chance of people paying attention to it than if you just go in the regular way through the door everyone has to go through. It's kind of like getting a backstage pass. So this is a big deal. Trying to find someone who can help you get into the job. That's one reason why I've been reaching out to many of you on LinkedIn, so that we can become connections, because I have over 1,000, 2,000 connections, and that may help. So that's one. Third is customizing the job application. That's part of what we're doing here with the profiles we've been discussing, but also when you write your cover letter, and you don't necessarily have to do the cover letter for every job. There are gonna be some jobs you don't care about, and you're just, you're kind of throwing your hat in the ring. Okay, that's fine. You may not want to do a cover letter, but for any job you really have an interest in, you should take the time and not just have a complete template that you just copy and paste and don't make any changes to. You should customize it. You should say some specific things about why you're interested in the role and what makes you a compelling candidate for the role. So this is also important. That's another way to help yourself stand out. I do think your Wonderbench profile can be an important part of that. And then that's not the end of the story. So employers are busy. There's a lot going on. You need to follow up at least every 2 weeks. I like to think about Friday as a day of doing this. When I'm looking for jobs, every Friday, okay, who am I going to reach out to today? And you ought to have a list of all the places you've applied. I just keep a Google sheet, and I note the title and the company and the day I applied. And then I have notes where I reference when I followed up and when I've done something else. And you should make a point of reaching out to them. It's a good idea. It shows that you're interested. It is a way to differentiate yourself, and it doesn't need to be long. It doesn't need to be, you don't really have to pester them. It can be upbeat, and it should be upbeat, and it's just a way to reach out. So I encourage everybody to do this. And then finally, don't lose heart, right? It can be discouraging, to do 200 applications, and who knows, with COVID-19, maybe it's 400 now, right? It's a lot. So you need to have someone you can chat with, right? Have a friend and be able to kind of share your stories, and don't lose heart, because this is just the nature of it. So in terms of next steps with your profile, I am going to send your profile by tomorrow, and you'll be able to take a look at it. And you can let me know if you have any questions. I'll include a link on there in case you want to set up time to discuss it on the phone. Happy to. And then you should start using it. And I would encourage you to keep me posted, because I will pay extra attention to your webpage to see if we're getting any hits. I pay attention to it anyway. I mean, I keep an eye on our website, but it will remind me. that you're out there and we can have some extra communication. So thank you so much. Keep at it, everybody. Hold your heads up. And I would welcome any feedback on this session. Once we close the Zoom, I think you'll get a survey. So feel free to give us some feedback that way. Thanks so much, everybody. I hope you have a great day. Take care.